Hey guys, as promised, here's a quick walkthrough of my simple cargo trailer camper slash cabin conversion. So here it is, big picture, 6x12, pretty simple steel conversion cargo trailer, nothing fancy, paid less than $4,000 for it. Single axle and brakes on the rear. Talk through some systems, just an overview here on the outside. Not much to tell, it's converted other than obviously the battery box and propane on the tongue outside, and then windows on either side. Sorry, it's dirty from sitting here. Otherwise, from the back, pretty much just a cargo trailer. I added some lights here. Wiring is intact to add some more there in the future. Very simple jacks, stabilizer jacks there. They just fold up in transit. And 3 points of contact when it's parked like this. Cool. So, outside, we'll start with the propane system. Go propane, electrical, and then other stuff. So, fabbed up this mount there. You can see it. This secures the propane tank. This is a 30-pound aluminum tank. Kind of splurged on that, but corrosion resistant, lighter weight, and holds more. Lasts us a long time between fill-ups for what we use it for. Locked on there, and doesn't take up much room on the tongue. Leaves room for the battery box here. Simple Y split off there. This goes inside first to a regulator valve here to get low pressure, and then I don't know if this will work, but just right up underneath and into the trailer itself. That's for heat. And then we'll split off this here for cooking. 2-burner Camp Chef stove. This legs to come off and it packs up real small. How we transport it. And then simply we get cooking ready in no time. For the rest of the propane system, so that line from outside enters up here, got a valve and then a hose and a simple indoor safe catalytic heater here that really does well. Between this and the insulation, it can be about 30 degrees outside and you can have it all the way up to 70 or more inside. And this takes very little fuel to power. Still, with that in use, obviously we vent, crack the window a little bit, and always run a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector for that. So that is propane. Most of you guys were interested in electrical setup, so it starts with the battery box there. It's a very simple setup, but it works for what we do. This battery box also a little pricey, but again, the sleekest option to mount these up front. Aluminum construction from Power Armor, and it locks as a deterrent, of course, but batteries aren't cheap. Let me put this down for a sec. Okay, we got 2 Duracell golf cart batteries, 6 volts each, series for 12-volt system. I used Anchor marine grade wiring here, 4 gauge for the batteries here initially, and then I believe 14 inside for everything else. 235 amp hours there, so with them in series, that's the capacity. All the maintenance that's required, the way the system's set up, is essentially the solar charge controller keeps them maintained, and just occasionally check the water levels on these guys. Just fused here at the batteries for safety as well. Got one of these to the chassis ground, and then the ground and power. Their 12 volts go down and up into the floor there. Further outside, this is wired up, although I've never actually used it for any trips. But a 30 amp AC connection. With a receptacle here, you can get different adapters. I could even just plug this into my house with a extension cord, but don't need to with the solar there. And that's wired into the panel that I'll show you here in just a second. But the rest of the electrical stuff outside, see if this extends. It's gonna be up on the roof. Alright, piece of shit GoPro selfie stick malfunction. Anyway, going up to the top of the roof. Let's see if you can see it. It'll be just the 2 100-watt panels up there. Hopefully you can see from that. Nothing too special there. 2 100-watt panels wired in, and then the solar enters through a gland. Here's the inside. This roof, or ceiling rather, added, drops down about a ½ inch. And the wiring is run for the lights and everything else up in the channel that it creates. So it's a little bit cleaner, and then it also enables the lights to be added. We'll talk about that in just a sec. For most of the wiring runs, put them behind the plywood here, and then they drop down to the electrical panel here. This is clearly a work in progress. Ultimately, building a galley up front here. I'll have a countertop about counter level with a sink in this area and some storage, and it'll eventually hide all this behind a cabinet for the electricals. For the electrical stuff itself, so we got the wires running through a conduit in this area, and it all essentially terminates here at this. It's called a PD 4045. Works DC and AC, and keeps everything real clean. So the nice thing is we get the DC side here. Individual blade fuses for every single circuit, so it's very safe. Depending on what the circuit is, I have those labeled there. And then the DC side, or the AC side, which is currently unused but is usable. This is that connection from the outside. It's wired into the AC side. So if that's were to be plugged in, then this system would run on the AC. For the with the main breaker on the AC side, you can have multiple breakers here. For the rest of the wiring, so we got the solar coming in. This wire, the 2 solar PV wires come up here to the charge controller. And this is 75 115, pretty small. They make different variants for how big the capacity of your system is. but very, very simple. So PV comes into this, and then we get the connections for the battery outbound. It also has, as you can see, a Bluetooth dongle there. Enables me to see the status of the electrical system on the app with Bluetooth. And you don't need internet connectivity for that. So from there, follow the battery connections out from the charge controller. I just added some posts here inside. These are the main battery lines that come up from the battery box itself. And the way this is set up now is that even with DC disconnected from a DC switch that's even viewable, it's a main DC disconnect switch, that this charge controller is still maintaining the battery's health intelligently by allowing them to discharge and then charge daily, even when there's no load on the rest of the system. All right, from there, we've got the wires coming into the panel, and then the rest of the wiring out to the individual runs. For everything in here is 12 volt DC for the most part. DC negative bus bar. I wire everything back to the negative bus bar for diagnostics and safety. And then all those runs go back up through the conduit here. So individual circuits, and then these are cheap. Amazon find they're RF switches for the light circuits that actually work really, really cool. Simple USB I added there. For the rest of it, lighting now, we've got lights, one there, one here. Those two are on one circuit. And then the 4 recessed lights are on a separate circuit. And a couple of these RF remotes with that system. So it's nice to be able to be in the hammock and be able to turn the lights off without having to get up. Separate circuit for the recessed lights. And the recessed lights are also on a dimmer, cheap dimmer switch here. And those will dim the recessed lights at night. And honestly, it's middle of the day right now, but at night, this is a ton of light in here. And you can really just get by with these very low output recessed lights at night. Other stuff on the 12 volt system, some exterior lights. I have a couple circuits that I'm planning on doing some more exterior lights with, like LED strips there and there. So those are just ready to go. And really, other than that, just a simple electrical fan. Opens up just like any other cargo trailer vent would, but this one is on a separate circuit. So no air conditioning, but this fan with the windows that open on both sides gives you really good ventilation. There. As far as the, well, I guess we'll talk about the fridge since it's electric. Here is the Dometic CF80 fridge. It's 12 volt DC and AC capable, wired in for DC right now. Very large capacity, and works awesome. And it runs exclusively off the solar power. You can run it 24/7. Digital control. I just turned it off because it's empty now, but it only cycles occasionally as long as it needs to cool down. We'll set the temperature, and it'll cool to that temp and maintain it. The fridge is set up so that So anyway, this will lock for transport so it doesn't slide inadvertently. And then it's installed on some sliders here. So it'll be able to slide out from this galley area that will be built eventually, and accessible that way. Once this all gets tidied up. Cool. Where were we? Windows installed by me, and pretty straightforward. These are not the cleanest installation, but first try. Standard RV windows you can get off of the internet. Forget the exact dimensions. Clearly, with these posts or the steel behind the plywood here, required it to be cut there and then reinforced perpendicular with some 1-inch steel welded in. So no structural integrity is lost that way. They will slide. And I would absolutely recommend adding windows. Doesn't have to be this big, but it also is an escape option as well as a ventilation and light, more than just the fan itself. Sweet. Water outside real quick. I overbuilt it. It's compatible with city water here. Pressure fed inlet that's not even connected inside. And then this is just a gravity port. So a simple 5-gallon tank there. Pressure can be connected but isn't, and this gravity feeds into it that way. Eventually, like I said, there'll be a small kind of bar style sink here. The 12-volt pump wired in that will feed the sink on demand, and then just gravity drain into a gray water. No black on this thing, just gray water holding tank. Once that's all finished, which is on the to-do list. All right, other stuff. I mentioned insulation. Insulated the ceilings and all the walls behind the plywood, or the Luan board here. 1-inch rigid insulation foam from Lowe's. Nothing fancy, just cut to size and wedged in there, and then reinstalled the wood right on top of it. Eventually going to finish the floor, probably do some kind of garage floor in here, and either paint or do something to the walls, make it a little more nice, but it's functional at this point. And really, yeah, that keeps the temperatures extremely comfortable. All right, sleeping arrangements, a couple other things. It's real modular, so as you can see, I didn't build up anything in the middle here, so it can still hold motorcycles, quads, whatever else. A lot of bicycles. Bicycle mounts, you can just hold the fork right like that, and you can get a bunch of those and fit tons of bikes in there. Motorcycles can bolt to the floor with tie downs around the area. And for sleeping, hammocks. So I'll demonstrate that real fast. It's super quick. So that's it. Now your sleeping arrangement is set up. It's E-track bolted to the steel frame. Eventually I'll run more E-track once I figure out exactly how I want it to go. Right now just some 2-channel E-tracks there with the clamps and hooks right up. And super sturdy. Holds the weight. They're rated for like 1,000 pounds, 2,000 pounds. So easily holds the weight and is no flex there. So we can rig those up that way, and then another kind of double decker the opposite direction below it. And the kids, smaller ones, can go directly side side on the walls. So sleeping is super easy and comfortable, and gets out of your way in no time. And my dashboard for my project car is in here too, for now. So I think that's pretty much it, dudes. Let me know what questions you got. I'm happy to answer them, and I'll post up some more details for the electrical stuff and whatnot. Cheers.